So the Orioles get another 35 to 40-year-old pitcher. I'll tell you who it is coming up on this episode of the Talkin O's podcast. Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is January 3rd, 2025, and welcome back into the Talkin O's podcast. As always, I'm your host, Evan, and coming on today's episode, we'll be discussing the signing of Charlie Morton, who signed for 1 year, $15 million, and he was a starting pitcher for the Atlanta Braves last year before he signed the deal to play in Baltimore. Let's go ahead and jump right in and talk about who is Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton is a pitcher. He has previously played for the Braves, the Astros, the Rays, the Phillies, and the Pirates. He has been in the AL East before pitching with the Rays. He's won 2 World Series rings, one with the Astros, one with the Braves. Morton, last year in 17 starts, went 7-5, pitched to a 4.19 ERA, and recorded a 1.32 WHIP. He has been great in some years, and he's been bad in some years. I'll get back a little bit into the mechanical side with this. Now, Charlie Morton is one of those guys you would count on to eat innings. He's basically what I would call a better Kyle Gibson. He did have some trouble in the second half. He did allow a 437 earned runs per 9, and he gave up a 279, 357, 469 batting slash line. He was able to rebound in September after his month of August was very shaky. His strikeout and walk marks were able to stay steady all throughout the season. The Braves were not really willing to keep Morton due to strict budget limits for the team, so they weren't really interested in keeping Morton for a 5th consecutive season. The Athletic has stated that Morton wanted to sign with a team that was close to where he lived in Bradenton, Florida, and the Orioles fit that category as their spring training complex is in Sarasota, Florida. He wouldn't be as close to home as the regular season as he was in Georgia. That was less of a concern to Morton. Morton will be the Orioles' second starting pitching addition, after adding in a 35-year-old veteran from Japan in Tomoyuki Sugano. Obviously, the Orioles are still tied to Dylan Cease and Luis Castillo, but they are also still tied to a pitcher who had previously played for them, but had a bounce-back season in the past year, in Jack Flaherty. The Orioles' projected rotation is currently Zach Eflin, Grayson Rodriguez, Charlie Morton, and Tomoyuki Sugano. You also have Albert Suarez, Trevor Rogers, Cade Povich, and Chase McDermott to back them up. The Orioles are still looking for the ace of the staff after Corbin Burns has left in free agency. But the question is, will it be Luis Castillo or Dylan Cease? We'll have to wait to see when that does eventually happen. You don't really have to expect it now, because the Orioles got Corbin Burns around very early February, very late in the offseason. That will do it for this episode of the Talkin O's podcast. I will eventually be back whenever I can do another episode. But until then, I'm Evan, and this has been the Talkin O's podcast.